I want to do a video that's a bit of a first for this channel. I'm going to review a sword that was sent to me specifically for review. This is the first time a company has sent me a sword specifically for review, so should be interesting. I've got the box right here, so we'll do a bit of an unboxing here. And while I find a knife and unbox this, I might as well tell you about what we're looking at here. This is a sample sword from a relatively new company called Dangerous Knives. Dangerous Knives apparently started off as Armstreet, and Armstreet is a company that sells armor and weapons for SCA, LARP, some HEMA stuff you could say. And we're going to see if their offshoot company, Dangerous Knives, has created a nice sword for us. So the story that I got from Dangerous Knives' creator was that they wanted to start offering sparring weapons on Armstreet. However, their lawyers basically said, you can't sell swords on your site because everything else you sell, you know, isn't functional, is safe, is armor or LARPing equipment. These are actually considered real weapons, and so we would have to treat them basically under the ordinance for Dangerous Knives. So they sort of took that tongue-in-cheek and named their new offshoot company Dangerous Knives. So Dangerous Knives wants to start making some sparring swords and whatnot. We'll see what we have here. So I've just opened up the top, filled with delicious packing cardboard paper. And let's see what we have here. An impressive lump of foam. I'm not sure how well this would work. Alright, let's take a look and see what's inside here. Now naturally, I already know what's in this package, so it's not going to be a surprise for me, but for you all this might be interesting. Alright. So we've got quite a bit of saran wrap around, quite a bit of bubble wrap. I need to get that all off without damaging the sword. So there's your first hint. It's a sword. And beneath the bubble wrap is more saran wrap. So this thing's very well packed. I wonder if I'm going to regret filming this. So some more backstory while I'm doing this. Basically, the creator of Dangerous Knives posted on Reddit saying that, you know, they were creating some new swords and they were looking for some feedback. I took a look at the specs and just sort of gave my initial impressions just based on the specifications listed, the weight and length and everything. Let's see. Almost there. And I told them that I had a YouTube channel, that I do reviews regularly, and that this would be something I'd be interested in, giving them sort of initial impressions from my perspective, and my perspective being HEMA practice. But I also know people in the reenacting community, the SCA community, other communities that use dull swords for various purposes, and so I figured I'd check it out. Underneath all the wrapping, it comes in a nice bag. Looks like a sort of a cloth felt bag, maybe. I did ask the creator of these if they were going to be offering scabbards, and they said they might be down the road. And just taking that out, let's take a look here. So, here it is. And what we're looking at here is the Dangerous Knives Hawk Arming Sword. And I just realized that it'll probably be in the title of this video, so it'll be a spoiler all along. Sorry to ruin the surprise. So this is Dangerous Knives' basic arming sword. I think that they actually have a training version, which is going to be a little less decorative, I guess you'd say. But this is a decent looking training sword. So I have not unboxed or held it or anything until this very moment, so I'm just holding it for the first time. Just giving it a little swing. And you know, So my first thought when I saw the specs on this sword was that it was going to be very heavy, that I was going to take it out of the box and go woof. That has not happened. Even when I was unwrapping it, I was surprised that it was much lighter than I was thinking. The specs on this, it's listed as weighing 2.92 pounds, which is nearly 3 pounds. 3 pounds is quite heavy for a single-handed sword or an arming sword of this nature. Typically, we want those to be about 2 pounds, under 2 pounds if we can get them there, just to make them lighter for when we're swinging and practicing with them and stuff. Because you are taking all the weight into one hand, and then you've got another hand on your shield. So unlike a long sword, you know, we don't have both hands supporting this, so we want this to weigh as little as we can get. Let's take a look-see. So looking at the construction of this thing, I've got to say I'm fairly impressed. This looks, for a training sword, this is really quite nicely made. The pommel, I actually can't tell if this is screwed on or peened on. If they've peened it, they've done an absolutely incredible job hiding the peen. I see absolutely no, I don't see any marks where they would have, you know, hammered the peen down or covered her up or anything. So I suspect that it's secured some other way. I'm not allowed to do destructive testing on this sword, sadly. Otherwise, I probably would have brought it to a fight night, a sparring night, just to put it through its paces, see what people think about it, swinging it in, you know, in a live steel situation. That's quite nice. Yes, let's take a look. So after the pommel, we've got the grip. The grip is nicely leather wrapped. It has 3 risers, which is interesting. One down by the bottom, one in the middle, one towards the crossguard here. The crossguard is pretty good. I'm trying to aim it at the camera. Some of the Viking sword or arming sword crossguards that I see are way, way, way too thick. These are actually pretty nice. They're decently thick in the middle, but go to sort of progress down, taper, as it were, over to the edges here. One thing I noticed is that the crossguard here does have a little ding in it already. I don't think that was from shipping because they packed it absolutely amazingly. So this must have been a little ding that was, must have gotten a little ding in the shop or something. Very interesting. I don't believe this is a prototype. I believe this is actually a for-sale sword. So this is what you could basically expect to receive from the company, to my understanding. They are a fairly new company, so I imagine they'll be making improvements on any issues down the road. Right now I'm trying to find those issues, I guess, and I am coming up short. So the pommel, not sure how it's attached, but it feels very secure. I can't unscrew it or anything, so it's not screwed on there that I can tell. It's also not peened on there that I can tell, which I find interesting. The leather grip's very nice. I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a wood core grip with cord over the wood and then leather over the cord, because I can kind of feel cord under there. Crossguard, as I said, is on there nicely. It's not too thick. There is a bit of a gap you might have noticed between the crossguard and the sword, but I think that if they are mass producing these, basically, if they're going to be producing these just sort of, you know, if this is going to be a standard sword that they produce, I think having a bit of a gap there is okay, because it allows you to build a bunch of blades, build a bunch of crossguards, put them all together rapidly, allows you to manufacture swords more easily, so that's okay to me. On a handmade sword, on like an artisan sword or something, that kind of gap would bother me, but because this is going to be something mass-produced, and it's going to be something used for SCA, re-enactment, basically, you know, bashing people with steel, I think this would, you know, that's fine. So now the blade itself. Looking at the blade, it doesn't seem to have any distal taper. It looks like it's about almost 2 millimeters thick all the way through. And let me see if my calipers are at hand, because can actually figure that out really fast if I have them. Okay, there. Alright, let's take a look and see how thick this blade actually is. So down at the base of the blade, I'm actually getting about 2.8 millimeters, so just about 3 millimeters there. And then when I go to the tip, I've got nope, it keeps jumping around a bit, but it's right about 3 millimeters again, 2.8, 3 millimeters. So this doesn't appear that it has any actual distal taper. It's the same thickness all the way through. On a sharp sword, that would definitely be a problem. For something like this, which again is going to be dedicated to hitting other swords like this, I think that's fine. It's really thick all the way through, which keeps it nice and safe. The tip is also just 3 millimeters thick like the rest of the blade. It isn't rolled, it's just a blunt 3 millimeter tip. So that should be fine. I imagine that still could deliver a pretty nasty thrust, but again, in SCA, I think thrusts are controlled, or even not allowed because, you know, you get tips of swords like this. Now, the one thing that I was really sort of turning over in my mind as I started thinking about this review and what I wanted to try out with this sword is, would I recommend this sword for HEMA? Would I use this sword for HEMA? Right out of the box, for SCA or re-enactment, I would say heck yeah. This thing looks really nice. If it were in a scabbard, it looks, you know, the right period. So if you were doing reenacting with this sword, oh yeah, this would be a fine sword to carry around a Ren Fair, do demonstrations with, to sort of have on your person. It's nicely made, it looks nice. For SCA, I think it would also be good. It's very heavy and durable. Again, I can't do abusive testing, but I think this thing would take quite a beating. It feels well put together, and the blade is, you know, 3 millimeters thick all the way through. This would be pretty good. For HEMA, it's not as heavy as I thought it was, but that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that it's light enough for HEMA per se. And so as I'm, you know, doing just some very basic strikes with this sword, I'm trying to imagine, could I do this for, you know, an hour-long class? Could I go to a 2-hour workshop with this sword and do sword and buckler, arming sword type things? And that feels a bit heavy for. It's not, again, I'm very surprised because when I read that it was 2.92 pounds, I expected this thing to just feel like a crowbar right out of the box. Delighted to say that that's not the case. It feels much more nimble than I thought, and I think that's because more of the weight is in the hilt rather than the blade. I did a review of a Topeka Viking sword that has a immense, thick, wide, heavy blade, and that sword is terrible and would be terrible for single-handed sword, I-33, sword and buckler type things. Because the blade is so heavy, you know, anytime you do something like this or like this, the blade just wants to weigh you down. That's with the Topeka. With this one, I think enough of the weight is concentrated towards the hilt that the blade doesn't feel as heavy, so it feels a bit more nimble. It feels like I can, you know, manipulate this easier and for longer. So overall, I'm fairly impressed, and I think if it were just a bit lighter, it would be perfect for HEMA. Again, I really like the edge of the blade and the tip. I think the blade could do to be just a tad bit lighter. One way to make it lighter would be to make it more narrow. As long as that doesn't make the tip dangerous, that should be fine. Taking some weight off of the pommel, the crossguard, and possibly the grip could reduce some weight. But overall, pleasantly surprised. When I read the specs, I really thought this was going to be quite a heavy sword, but it's really impressed me. It's much more nimble in the hand than I originally thought. So that is pretty cool. Nice. Yeah. That is pretty neat. Really wish I could do some abusive testing with the sword, do some fighting, do some sparring with it. It does look very interesting, and I'm actually excited to see what else comes out of Dangerous Knives. I'm going to send my feedback directly to them, and I'll of course link them to this video. For long swords that they sell on their site, one of my recommendations is immediately going to be reduce the weight. Some of their long swords are listed at around 5 pounds, and that is just, it's too much. It's too much for a long sword for HEMA practitioners. However, I will say again, for reenactment and SCA, this is a perfect sword as is. It looks, period, it looks very well constructed. It is, in fact, it feels well constructed. It's durable. It has the right period look. Like, I think if you were to buy this for reenacting or SCA, you'd be very happy. If you purchase this for HEMA practice, you may find it just a tad heavy. But again, surprised that it was not as heavy as I thought it was going to be. So, that is the Dangerous Knives Hawk arming sword. I'll post a link to their website below with all of the specifications, along with the weight, the length, all of that good stuff. Thanks a ton to Arthur of Dangerous Knives for sending this out to me. Apologies that it took me a while to make this video for you. And I really look forward to seeing what else Dangerous Knives comes up with in the future. I'm going to oil this up and send it back to the creator. Thanks a ton for watching, and talk to you soon. Thanks again for watching. Please hit subscribe and check out some of these other videos.